everybody, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today's tumbler, I'll be showing you how to make this glittered Peekaboo Hearts tumbler. If you do enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And let's get started. I'm starting with this 20-ounce stainless steel tumbler. I sanded this tumbler down, wiped it down with 91% alcohol, and then I painted the tumbler white. You can also spray paint your tumbler if you like. I'm going to show you all of these glitters that I'll be using on this tumbler. They will be listed in the description below, including a coupon code from Glitter Heart Co. Instead of pouring the glitters right from the bottles, I decided to use a 1 ounce cup for each color because everybody knows I have a very heavy hand. So I just pour them inside of these 1 ounce medicine cups just to have more control over the glitters. This is completely optional. It's just as easier for me when I place the glitter on the tumblers. I'll be using the Mod Podge method to apply my glitters on my tumbler. If you want to use any other method like the spray adhesive method or the epoxy method to apply your glitters, go ahead and use whichever method is easier for you. And then I start by placing the darker colors on the outside of the tumbler, and as I go towards the middle of the tumbler, I place a lighter color. So you'll see I started with this Sweetheart on the bottom, and then I'm going to place that also on the top, and you'll see that the top part, I accidentally dumped it on there because I'm heavy-handed, so the top is a little bigger than the bottom, but that's okay. And then I'm adding the Made You blush. Whenever I add these colors, I am pointing that new color on top of the already laid color. So that's how you kind of get that blend, so it blends well. So I'm laying this Bashful over the Made You blush, and then it blends, and then I lift my cup up higher with the glitter as I go towards the center of the tumbler. And then I just keep adding my glitters from darkest to lightest with that Mod Podge still on. The Mod Podge won't dry. I am working quicker than what I would usually work. But if you're using the epoxy method, then the epoxy method you can probably go a little slower than using the Mod Podge method. Once I'm finished applying my glitters to my tumbler with the Mod Podge method, I always go back with a spray adhesive. I'm using the Elmer spray adhesive, and I spray some on my tumbler, and then I go back in with my glitter. So you can see I sprayed some on the bottom. I went back to spray more on areas that I needed more glitter, and that way it allows me to touch up my tumbler more. Any areas that I want more ombre, more glitter, or anything of that nature, using the spray adhesive method is very simple, and it gives your tumbler that overall ombre or gradient look. I do this sometimes 3 or 4 times back and forth just to touch up my tumbler in areas where I might have not have gotten any glitter in the first place. Using the spray adhesive after already placing that first coat of glitter is probably my biggest tip for achieving that perfect gradient or ombre look. That's why I like to use the Mod Podge method when doing any type of ombre or multiple colors. It's because it's easier to use that spray adhesive after you place Mod Podge than it is epoxy. And then once I'm finished with applying all the glitters onto the tumbler, I'm going to go ahead and place that glitter on the bottom of my tumbler. I typically wait till last to do the bottom so I can stand my tumbler upright whenever I'm applying those other glitters on the tumbler. Once I have all of my glitters placed on my tumbler, I go in with my Krylon crystal clear acrylic coating, and I spray 2 generous coats of this all around the tumbler before I go in with my epoxy, and it takes about 25 to 30 minutes to completely dry. And once that acrylic coating was dry, I went in with my epoxy. I use a total of 30 milliliters of epoxy. That's 15 milliliters part A and 15 milliliters part B, totaling 30 milliliters of epoxy. I don't want too thick of a coat of epoxy on this tumbler because this is going to just be my first coat of epoxy, but I want enough epoxy just to seal in that glitter, and so we can add some stencils or decals over that epoxy. Once I place my epoxy on my tumbler, this is actually my fast set epoxy, so this took about 2 hours to dry. If you need more assistance on how to apply epoxy to a tumbler, be sure to check out my description below, and I have a beginner's help tutorial down there for y'all to check out. So I had this other tumbler that I already had epoxied and ready to go, so I decided to just continue the video with this tumbler. What I did was I used a 180 grit sanding block to sand any of those stubborn areas that the glitter might be peeking up through. And then I went in with my 91% alcohol to get rid of any dust or oils that I may have transferred to the tumbler while I sanded it down. And then I created some heart decals to place on my tumbler. I have silhouettes and outlines. I'm only placing the silhouettes on the tumbler first, and then I'll place the outlines later. I will have these decals posted in my description below. They are on my Etsy shop. I applied all of my silhouettes on my tumbler. I really did not overthink this. I just placed it until I was happy with the amount of hearts I had around my tumbler. And once all of my decals were placed down the way I would like them, what I did was I folded up or rolled up some of my painter's tape and I placed them on each decal. I'm going to be spray painting this tumbler and adding some glitter over the spray paint and then peeling off the decals. So I figured adding some painter's tape over the decals will allow me to find those decals easier than if I didn't. I know a lot of people, they use hot glue for this method. So if you have any other trick that you'd like to use to find your decals better, go ahead and use that trick that you know. Once all of my decals were placed on my tumbler and I have all the paint, I took my tumbler outside and I spray painted with a red spray paint, and I am going to add some chili pepper, which is the red glitter from Glitter Heart Co. After I spray painted it, I went right inside and I added the glitter right over that wet spray paint. So I'm using that spray paint as an adhesive. I didn't add any Mod Podge, I didn't add any glue. I'm applying this glitter right over the wet spray paint. Once I applied it, I let the spray paint dry with the glitter for about 10 to 15 minutes and it was completely dried. And once the spray paint and the glitter was dried on my tumbler, that's when I went in and I took my weeding tool and also some backwards tweezers, what I call them, and I peeled up my decals very slowly. Now, obviously I have this on fast forward, but I did take my time doing this because you want to make sure that you don't scratch that glitter away off the tumbler with those weeding tools or your fingernails or your tweezers. And while I did this, my weeding tool did scrape on my tumbler some, leaving those scrapes or those lines in my glitter so you can really see it. But don't worry, after this step, I'm going to show you how I fix those. So if you did kind of nick your tumbler with your weeding tool going too fast, like scraping it, I'm going to show you a solution on how to fix that so it doesn't look so tacky, or so you just kind of clean it up some. So the areas that I accidentally scraped or scratched some of that glitter off of, I added a very light coat of Mod Podge onto a paintbrush. Very light coat. You don't want to clump this up so there's a big clump of glitter, but you want a very thin coat, like kind of fan it on your tumbler. And then I added some glitter over those spots. So I'm really just patching these areas up and just really going over those areas where I made mistakes, and you won't even be able to notice whenever I add the glitter over that thin coat of Mod Podge. I also took a dry paintbrush, one that is completely clean, and I used that to brush away the hearts, any of the excess glitter that may have transferred on the hearts, because we are going to seal this, so you don't want any glitter on those hearts, so make sure you get those hearts as clean as you can and as glitter free as you can. And once I was happy with applying my glitter to my tumbler, I went in with my crystal clear acrylic coating once again, applying 2 generous coats to the tumbler. And once my acrylic coating was completely dried, I went in with my next coat of epoxy, which was about 15 milliliters of epoxy total. I applied that all over my tumbler. Again, this is not going to be my last coat of epoxy, so I don't want a lot of epoxy. I just wanted to add just enough to seal in that glitter, to let it dry, and so I can go on with my next step. I am also using my fast set epoxy, so again, this is taking about 2 hours to dry to the touch, and then we'll move on with adding more decals to the tumbler. And once my tumbler was completely dried, I went in with those decals. I am applying those outline hearts to the silhouette hearts. And the way that I designed these outlines were to make them a little smaller than the silhouette, so you can see that the silhouette peeks through behind those outlines. I thought that'd be a different look, so these outlines aren't exactly how the silhouettes are. And I just added the colors wherever I thought I remembered I placed them, or just randomly around. Even if they didn't match up, I thought it was cute to have like a bigger silhouette and smaller outline. And once I placed all my decals on my tumbler, I went in with my CCDIY Quick Coat. This just allows my decals to really stay in a place. A lot of times whenever you add epoxy to your tumbler, the decals like to lift. So this Quick Coat really allows those decals to stick to the tumbler, so you don't have to worry about any decals lifting. I did not use a fast set epoxy for this. I used just the regular epoxy. So I let my tumbler spin on the cup turner for about 4 hours, and then I turned off my cup turner, and then I let my tumbler air dry or air cure for another 20 hours. Total drying or curing time of 24 hours. And then once my tumbler's epoxy was cured, I took it off the cup turner, and then all I had left to do was clean the inside of my tumbler. If you need assistance on how to clean the inside of your tumbler, I will have a help video posted in my description below, so be sure to check that out. And here is the final tumbler. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.